Today we're looking at building a site that helps you with your electronics projects, and this one in particular can take in the colors of a resistor you have. So if you're not familiar, a resistor looks like this, and sometimes it has 3 bands, 1, 2, 3, sometimes it has 4 like this one, sometimes it has 5 bands, and sometimes it has 6. And depending on the bands, the band numbers, and the colors, that depends on how much resistance that particular resistor has, and that's measured in ohms. So if you just have a bunch of these laying around the box and you don't know what any of their resistances are, then it's not really helpful for your electronics projects, right? So you want a quick way to be able to get the value of those resistors without having to look up the numbers every time. And to do that, you can just enter the colors here. So this one in particular has 4 colors, right? Yellow, violet, we'll say orange, and gold. So if I go yellow, violet, orange, and this one says leave on pick color if not needed. We need this one because it was gold, and we don't have a band 5, so that's fine. We click get value, and then it will return the resistor value, and the resistor has a tolerance, and the tolerance is one of those bands, and it will return the low and high tolerance of your resistor. Instead of returning a percentage like you would see on a chart, it would say like plus or minus 5%. I give you the actual values here, right? So this is what we're building. Now let's kind of take a look at how we build it, right? So this is hosted on GitHub, and we'll get to that in just a second. To get started, you need to install two things. You need Node installed. I know it's a front-end project, but we're using a bundler, so you're going to need Node. You're also going to want TypeScript installed globally, or in your project like I have, that's fine. And then you want Browserify installed globally. So to install something globally, you can do npm i-g, and if I want Browserify, it's Browserify, like that. And then you're going to hit enter. I've already installed it globally, so I'm not going to do it again. But go ahead and type that in, hit enter. You're going to need Browserify and TypeScript like that. Once you have done that, still in the terminal, you're going to need a package.json. That's what I'm looking at here on the screen now. So you type npm init -y. There we go. npm init -y will get you your package.json. And then I believe to get because you're going to also need a TypeScript config file, this tsconfig here. So I believe to get that file, I did tsc-init. It's either -init or -init. Either one, try it out. I think it's -init and tsc-init, and that'll get you your ts config file. We need both because we have TypeScript and we have JavaScript going on. And we're going to eventually use TypeScript to compile the ES6 to ES5. And then we're going to use Browserify to bundle the ES5 code. And we're going to get there in just a second. So let's look at how this is laid out. So we got our index.html here, and you can kind of see the correlations. We got our logo. This is our logo, right? We've got this get resistor value that's here. It's an H1 paragraph underneath it. And then we have a form, right? And the form contains all these boxes here. And so like here's the first drop down, and each box is in a container, and I styled the container. The container's all the same, but each box has a container with a class of band container, and it got styled. So these are the drop downs in box 1, for example. And then there's drop downs for box 2, and you'll notice the drop downs are slightly different the further you go down the page. And the reason that is because once you get to a certain box, you may or may not need certain colors depending on what I was reading off the chart, right? If you need a chart for resistors, which you may if you want to build this out, right? So you could say resistor chart color values or something like that into Google. And if we go to images, yeah, there's all kinds of charts, right? So I used the chart something like this, and I kind of plotted out what colors I needed for which select option. So you can kind of go down through and plot the colors you need out for each one, right? And this particular, and you're going to see, right, there's 3 through 6 band resistors. Not all of them have 4. And so this particular site is able to determine automatically if you have a 3 band, 4 band, 5 band, or 6 band resistor based on how I wrote the code. Other things to note in this HTML file is at the bottom, we are using our source. We're in the source folder here, and the source folder is where we have our image folder and our images. and it's where we have all our TS files, which are our TypeScript files, right? And we have our style CSS in here. So source/bundle.js, and the bundle.js is what we'll get from Browserify. That's hooked up to the index HTML. And up top we have our Google font. So I imported a Google font for this because the normal one's kind of boring. And then we have a style CSS sheet, which is here. And if you're interested in Google fonts, you just type in Google fonts and you go to their site. And you can kind of click through and it'll give you options to like add those options. So for example, if I click on Roboto, I can select the style, and then it gives me this embed link here that I can use. So I would use this in my index.html, and then in my CSS file, wherever I want this particular font, I would add this to the CSS. Speaking of CSS, let's go to that. So for example, my font family from Google was this. So I copied it. This isn't the same one, right? But I copied it and pasted here for my CSS style. Okay. So this is made for mobile first. I didn't really decide to spread the boxes out or anything or make them bigger for computer. I think it looks good on both as is. So I just made mobile first and left it at that. Looks okay on a computer and looks okay on mobile. You can bring this exact site up on your phone here, and it will look pretty good. Excuse me. So there we go. And let's look at a little bit of this here. We got our background is a PNG. It's that lightning bolt coming down from the images folder that we have. And then I kind of organized the background here. I didn't want it to repeat or anything. Okay. And then I said, yeah, I want all my fonts to be this. And sometimes the selects don't have that, so you'll see it copied here also. Yeah, so I styled the drop downs a little bit so they weren't that grayish color. And then I styled the button at the bottom here. And then the band container, this is, so each of these green boxes with this little box shadow is a band container. The message at the bottom, this is styling for this box down here. Okay, let's go into the TypeScript. So I have a main file, ts.main, and it literally just runs the main function, right? So, and it runs it from index. So let's go to our index.ts. And this is where the code gets a little bit interesting, right? I tried to make this in a kind of functional way. So we have like a, so in TypeScript, first off, you can use import and export. It's fine because we're going to compile it down to ES5, and we'll show you how to do that in a bit. So let's move this over. We don't need this site as much anymore, and we can still kind of see it, but we want to see the code. So here I have the main function, right? And you'll notice I got some TypeScript in here. In the case of the event object, I just use any for the event object. Other than that, I've got values in for TypeScript for like parameters that go in or arguments that go in, and return statements. So the main function just adds an event listener to this form because that's pretty much the thing of the page, right? When you click get value, it should return something, and it does. And that's the goal, right? If you change this and you click it again, you want this click event listener to fire, or submit in this case. When you click this on the get value button to submit the form, you want the submit event listener to fire, and that runs this process form function, which is here. You got to run prevent default, and then after that, yeah. So I tried to bust these down into small functions, and I tried to make them fairly functional. Not all of them are, but a lot of them I tried to. So you'll see in a bit. So we have a colors array, and we have this get form colors function, which we'll show you down the page here. So we get an array of colors, and then we get the message to it. We pass those array of colors from this form. The array of colors comes from this form, right? So if yellow, violet, orange, black, and pick color or empty are part of the form, then that's what gets submitted. And then we get an array of those colors. So it would be an array of yellow, then violet, comma, orange, comma, black, comma, empty. We pass that array to the get message to append, which is this function. And then we have this calculate resistor values, right? So we go out, which is here, and we get the values of these specific colors that we brought in from the form. And we store them here in these three variables. And then we create our message to put down here. We create that message here with some string interpolation. And we return that message, which then comes up here and is printed as inner HTML to the console, to the browser. I've been using the console a lot. So that's the broad overview. We can dive in just a little bit to the smaller functions here. So calculate resistors, right? I have these get tolerance, get multiplier, and get band value. And this kind of weeds out if it's a 3, 4, 5, or 6 band resistor. And then based on those three things, right, I'm able to calculate the resistor, the value of the resistor, which is the band value times the multiplier. At that point, the low value, so the minus 5% plus or minus, if it's like 5% or 10%, the low value is the minus portion, and the high value is the plus portion, the positive portion. And then we return those three things, right? And that's what happens up here. Underneath that, we have get band value, and specifically, this uses, we got a ternary operator here, so it's saying like, if this is a 5-band resistor, then get me 0 through 3, right? 4 is, it stops on 4. So it'll get me the 0th value, the first, second, and third value. Else, I want to get an array of the 0 through second value. And those, based on those values, is based on what my band value is worth, or is. So then I take each color of the values that I got from the colors array, right? Because there's only so many colors in the array, and if you, depending if you have 3, 4, or 5, depends on which of the first couple bands line up with the actual band value, because eventually you have one for tolerance and one for, oh shoot, see, I forgot already. Go back to the diagram. Resistor, yeah, chart. So, see, one for the tolerance and one for, go this way, the multiplier, right? So okay, so one's for the multiplier. It's a lot to keep in my head. Okay, back we go. Let's just check out a couple of these lower functions here. So color to band value, right? I used, it looks like nested ternaries here, and it is, but it's super clean compared to other things I could do. So I just tried to kind of go as kind of far down this rabbit hole as possible just to see what it looks like, and that's what I did. So if the color comes in, it's actually not that hard to read. If the color that comes in is black, then return the string 0. Else if it's brown, 1, red, return 2, orange, return 3. When you think about it this way, it looks really clean. Yellow, return 4, and then gray, return 8. Else, if it's none of those, just return the string 9. And that's it. And then we return this band value that was part of this big ternary operator. But again, I think this looks super clean. That's why I did it. If I was writing in a production, like a work environment, I'd probably use a switch statement here, right? I wouldn't do this. But for personal purposes, I like it. Okay. Another ternary here. Again, this get multiplier, this get band value. All these help weed out which specific color or which specific amount of bands our resistor has and what to do with those colors of bands. Then I got a similar thing going on here for my color to multiplier, as you saw up here. A big nested ternary, which I'm not a fan of nested ternaries. I just think in this specific scenario they look really good. Same thing here for our tolerance. So this is our plus or minus X percentage. And then we have our get form values here. It looks like I forgot an any. Whenever you're taking an event, for me it doesn't, TypeScript doesn't like the different event options that I could give it right now. So I'm trying to figure out exactly what to put there. But for now, I'm just putting an any, right? So save that. And you'll notice I have it on Git here, right? You got to connect this to Git. Well, yeah. So you want this on, if you want to deploy this, you want to connect it to Git, which is, I think, the next thing we're going to talk about here. Yeah, we kind of covered everything else. This is the process stuff, wrong spot. And this is where I selected my form and the message div from the HTML, and I exported them into this index.ts file. Yeah, so let's talk about deploying it. So to deploy it, you don't need anything special to deploy it, but you do, like I said, you do need TypeScript globally and Browserify globally, right? You need both of those global. You need to run the init for the package JSON, which we showed at the beginning, and the init for the tsconfig. And then what you can do in your package JSON, right? I'm going to say here, instead of doing tsc, because down here you could do tsc source/main.ts and compile your TypeScript files to JavaScript, right? Or you can do it in here as a build command in your package JSON. So that's what I chose to do. I said, hey, compile these to JavaScript files. So when that command runs, this turns into this. So main here turns into this, which is the ES5 version, and it makes that for me. This index, all this TypeScript we have, and this ES6 turns into this, which is the ES5 kind of version that is browser friendly. Same thing here, same thing here. So that's what that command does. And then we say and, so we do this first, and then we run Browserify, which is now a command because you've installed it globally. And we want to run Browserify on our main JS file that we just made from this TypeScript command. So the TypeScript command makes this JS file from this TS file, right? It makes all these JS files. And then we want to say, hey, we want to get that main JS file. So we say Browserify main.js, which is this JS file here. And we want to output it to a new JS file, which is our bundled one. And we're calling it bundle.js, and we want it in the source folder. So we take the main.js file, we run it with this Browserify command, and the Browserify bundles all of our JavaScript stuff into this one file that we're calling bundle.js, which is here. And so this is you see up top all this minified stuff here. Okay, and then underneath we have our code, right? And it took all of our code and bundled it into this, including the exports and all that. You don't have to imports, exports. You don't have to worry about it. It's all here. Okay, again, I didn't write this. This is made by this command with Browserify. And that's it, right? So I run this one time. So I say npm run dev, or I probably should have named it build, right? If you want to build for production, npm run dev, and I run it one time, and it converted my files to JavaScript, and then it took my main.js file and bundled it into this, and all these JavaScript files, and bundled it into one file. And this is the file that I included in my index.html, right? So that's what you're seeing here. So that's how you bundle it, and that's how you do all that. And then what you can do is once you have a Git, right? So you need a Git repository for this, right? So you need to do like git init, and then git add, and add everything. You might want to make a git ignore file so you're not adding your node modules folder. So in git ignore, I'm ignoring my cache if there is one. I don't know where that went. Node modules, I think I deleted it, and dist if there's a dist. I'm ignoring those things. So make sure you have a .git ignore file when you're using Git. But you need git init, git add, git commit. If you're not sure how to initialize a Git file, Google that. There's plenty of things on there on how to do that, right? So now we're talking about deploying, right? So to deploy, I wanted to run these first, run this npm run dev, and that runs npm run devs runs these commands. I then initialize a Git repo here. I'm gonna move this back over a little bit. I'm gonna go to this project, so bear with me. Maybe if I can find it from here. Let's expand it. There we go. So you need to start a new repo, right? So I was back here. You want new, and you want to name your repo. You don't need a README file, but you can create that repository, and then it will tell you how to link up your Git project you initialized here with git init, git add, git commit. It'll tell you the exact two commands you need to copy and paste into here to link this Git project up to this project on your GitHub, in this case this. Then you can push the code to here. So your code's pushed to here, And then since it's all in a bundle.js file, and that bundle.js file is attached to your index.html file, right? So you can go to settings. And you don't need anything special for this. You don't need to install GitHub Pages, nothing. You just go to your settings, go down, go down, go down, go down, until you find this where it says GitHub Pages here. And this is where you host your site. And all you do is click on source, and your source is probably going to say none. Or something like that. And if it gives us GitHub Pages, ignore that. You just want master branch. That's all you need. Use the master branch for GitHub Pages. Select that. It may take a couple minutes, and then it's going to say your site is published at. It'll probably refresh to up here, and then you have to scroll back down. It'll say your site is published at this. You click it, and boom, your site's up and running, and it's working. And that's the whole deployment process, right? So this is the site I made. It's for getting resistor values. I have probably 50, 100 resistors that I've been playing around with for Arduino electronics behind me in a box. And I should have organized them before, but I didn't. And now I can just click through, get those resistor values and organize them accordingly and not have to do it again. So that's the project. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe, like, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.